Wirreanda Secondary School. It's Adam here. This is just a quick follow-up video just to, I guess, give you a bit of a resource that you can use over the next few months while you start to get the ball rolling around restorative practices. And the view behind the video is that I'll give you a little bit of a recap of what we discussed and what we worked on during the day, but also to give you a bit of a reminder of not only the way that you work together, but also the commitments that you made on the day. So we started the day with, well, to be honest, we started the day with the kind of intro around that Hitler video that I've never had before at a school, so I thank you very much for that. But we started the day with a session that really helped us look at viewing our school restoratively and viewing our work restoratively. It was a session that's very much built for me. I guess I always use the phrase of putting our restorative goggles on. And it's a difficult thing to do because what I'm asking you to do is to take into account, I guess, a more informal approach, which can be quite counterintuitive. In schools, we're very used to reacting quickly, and we're very used to reacting formally when we have needs and we have objectives and focuses that we'd like to take, and we arrange meetings and we arrange policies. But it's very difficult sometimes to remove ourselves from that pattern and to look really informally at what's happening around our ethos and what's happening around the work that is embedded within all of those small and informal interactions that happen so many thousands of times a day in your school and in your community. So we really looked at that in the first session, and then really looked in the second session at the restorative framework. And the things that included were looking at the operating domains, or which is sometimes referred to as the social discipline window, where we're trying to get that balance of firm and fair. We're really trying to look at what does it mean to be a to teacher, a not teacher, as we agreed that that's educational Fiji, it's just an occasional trip there. A for teacher, where we're good on the fair but not so much the firm, or then a with teacher, where we're not sacrificing firmness for fairness in any situation, or vice versa. What we find is when we can operate in that space consistently, that we're actually really great relational educators. We're building respect, and we're also maintaining our own authority in that situation, which is really important too. We also looked at the fact that you can slip from the with box, and sometimes you'll do it because you have to, because the students will demand that of you, and sometimes you'll do it as an accident of practice. And regardless of what the reason is that you do leave the with box, the great part about those operating domains is it gives you the chance to map your way back. It gives you the chance to look at what are the steps that I need to take in a time appropriate way that will allow me to get back to my optimum practice and therefore my optimum learning space in an appropriate kind of way. And that's really exciting when you can start to think that way. We also looked at the continuum from informal to formal and looked at the different types of restorative interactions that you could have, all the way from effective statements, where we talked about chucking in a feeling, through effective interactions to small impromptu conferences, to large group stuff, which is working in circles, and then through to formal conferencing, which will also be a focus of our work next year when we get together. And further than that, we looked at the restorative questions, and while you all have a card with those restorative questions on them now, it's really, really important to remember that it's not about asking those questions at every opportunity, but remembering that they're a guide, they're a roadmap, and what they do is allow you to navigate any conversation, any conflict, from past to present to future, this time not in a time appropriate way, but as quickly as possible. So that way we can be dispelling some of those myths around restorative practices taking too long and being too soft. And look, then in the third session of the day, we really stepped away from the formal look at restorative practices and looked at what are some of the techniques and the tips and the tricks and the strategies that you can use immediately that we would consider to fall under that restorative umbrella. And for us, it was things like looking at the golden rule of behaviour management, being that every behaviour has a meaning and a context. We looked at the Joe Lang's t-shirts and started to identify which of your students might be predominant and which of your students might be wearing those t-shirts, and how we could adjust our practice to get a different outcome along the trip. And we looked at topics like resilience and self-esteem and how appropriate they are, and how we may have got the definitions of those a little skew-if in our schools, which is really important to address. But to be honest, the content of the day is far less important than the vision that you can see on the screen right now. And that was the opportunity that you had during that day to work together in small groups around 4 to 6 and discuss practice. And to be honest, like I said, that the gift is in the dialogue. And while the presentation stuff on that day can be important, and I hope you all left with your own personal 7-second moment of something that really stuck with you from the day, where we really get some traction, we really get some momentum, and we really get opportunity to change the culture of your school and to enhance it and to transform it, is when you get the opportunity to sit down and talk together. And so that for your team that I know are working really hard on implementing at the moment, that will be needs to be a really big focus for that team, is where are the opportunities for you to sit in groups of 4 to 6 and discuss really key elements of practice. And I really know that from the energy that was in the room that day, I'm incredibly confident that if you keep those opportunities on the boil, you really are going to get some fantastic stuff start to happen in your school. And possibly the most important part of this video would be the very last part here, which is your less than 15-second video commitments. So regardless of whether you made a commitment or not, it's really important to have a look at these and just see if you can take inspiration from some of the people who did make a commitment. Listen to what they've said, listen to what their first steps are, and then hold them account to them also. Because once they've achieved those first steps, then it's time for step 2. And that means what's the next thing you're going to do to get the momentum moving forward for your school. As we agreed, it won't take one individual to change your school. It's something that you're going to have to do collectively. So have a chat with each other about what your commitments are as you move forward. I thoroughly enjoyed coming to visit you all. It was fantastic to spend the day with you collectively, but then also to have the chance to work with you the next day and the following evening with some of your parents. I know we're going to get some really great stuff happening in the short term, but also in the long term for your school. I wish you every luck. I really hope that you continue to view this as a partnership and that you stay in touch. I've had some people email me already and tweet me and things like that to keep the dialogue and the conversation going, and that's hugely important, and I encourage all of you to keep that going. Good luck, I'll talk to you soon, and here's your 15-second video commitments. Bye for now.
I'm going to help lead restorative practices across the whole school, and that's in conjunction with our site learning plan and with our PERMA vision.
Use positive reinforcement with both staff and students.
I think I'll do a lot of my practices intuitively, so I want to be more explicit, conversations, timeframes, that kind of thing, so articulate what I do better. Is that fine?
Well, when I have a situation, a conflict between 2 students, I'm going to talk to the perpetrator first.
Okay, so I'm going to give things a little bit more time to work and not just give up the first time if I don't think it's going in the right direction.
I'm going to ask more questions about restorative practice and how I can implement it in different ways.
Continue to find ways of saying no without actually saying no, which is distraction.
I want to continue to try to find ways to have the kids in my drama class work better in ensembles and to accept difference.
I'm team teaching with another Year 8 teacher on introducing our students to the circles of how you're doing, starting this week.
Okay, I'm going to send a letter home to all of my students' parents offering to be there for anything that they need and to discuss their students' or their children's successes and their issues as well in the classroom.
Make sure I'm more consistent with my expectations within the classroom so that the students do see me as fair and clear.
I'm going to use the restorative question to move from past to present to future.
I'm going to try to come up with some strategies to make to coordinate and communicate with my parents of my students a bit more effectively than what I have been doing so far.
I'm going to put a couple of visual displays in my classroom for me to remind me to go from to and for to with as much as possible, and another one about the PPF, past, present and future, just to remind me. I do some of that stuff anyway, but it's just a visual reminder. That's my first thing. That's my first step.
Well, what I'm going to do is what I'm going to continue that I do, continue opening doors for people, continuing to be a good role model. I'm not a teacher, I'm an SSO, so if I see something a little bit shifty in a classroom, I'll let the teacher know quite discreetly and we'll go from there. But I love the session today, and you've almost got a little bit of Andrew Fuller in your presentation. I love Andrew Fuller. He believes that every child is a magician and they know how to turn things off and on, but it's putting it into practice as a whole community, and it will work. Thank you.
I really enjoyed the day, and I think one of the things I'm going to do is not use the word don't as a way of stopping students from doing things, but rather put it in a positive way.
Dylan Thomas, I'm going to get you to stay in class for 45 minutes. I'm coming for you, buddy.
Okay, I'm going to use this and keep it very, very close both to my physical location and in my head, so that I'm using it to frame very much the conversations and responses I'm having in my classroom.
Good question. I'm going to try continue to be a friend to kids, but be more determined to be tougher with the kids. And that's a real effort. But I can see the value of being a bit harder and being a bit firmer. So that's the main thing.
I'm going to check in with my class and do their check-in circles, particularly the how you doing stuff.
Alright, from today I'm taking into my classes the check-in circles, writing fewer rules but implying them and enforce them in a more concrete way. Also going to use the questions in a daily manner with issue resolution, and also going to implement a sit-down procedure with students, sit a man down, a cup of tea or a glass of water, talk about the issue, but also the puzzle for two particular fighting students.
Okay, tomorrow I have a new class, so I'm going to talk to kids about restorative practice and then actually the 2-4 what boxes, so they can be aware of what happens actually in the classroom and what I'm actually doing in the classroom as well.
So tomorrow I'm going to talk to the same classes that I have had last semester about restorative practice, just a little bit about what we've done today, specifically talking about the 2-4 what not with. Yeah, that too. Box that and try to implement that in classroom practices.
I am going to focus on being a responder, not a reactor, to particular kids and just changing my approach for a whole class.
Well, I'm not going to be so bossy, and I'm going to ask the kids a little bit more about how they're feeling and what's their problems.
I'm going to work with my students tomorrow to create class norms that are collaborative and respect both the student and teacher's opinions.
I'm going to run some 9-minute meetings like Adam ran with my Year 8s when I have to, and it's probably going to be tomorrow.
I'm going to use restorative questionings to take things from the past to the present to the future. My commitment is one of consistency, so to really get those key phrases that you want for students to come naturally to you in the restorative way.